Hey, Dave Molenda here, Positive Polarity Podcast. Hope things are going awesome for you. I got two words today that kind of sum up a entrepreneur, and we're going to learn about it today. And those two words are increase revenue. And I don't know too many people that are in business today that are not interested in increasing revenue. And I know we all think we know it all about this, and I'm sure that you all do. I just want to take it from a different perspective today. And that perspective is actually the customer's perspective. So we are honored to be hanging out with Kristin Zhivago. How are you today?
I'm great. Thanks. How are you?
Good. You are the president of Zhivago Partners, and you're located up in Rhode Island. I have to say, is Rhode Island really an island, or is that just a fake term?
Well, actually, there's a big island in the middle of Rhode Island that is called Rhode Island, believe it or
Okay.
not. And the state itself is not an island. It's really a state with a bay in the middle of it. So it's like an upside down U,
Okay.
and it has a big Narragansett Bay going up the middle of it. So,
Huh.
and there are a lot of islands.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, I have to say, I've never heard of a revenue coach. So why don't you start out by sharing with us what is a revenue coach?
Actually started that decades ago. I started out with a high-tech ad agency with my husband in Silicon Valley
Okay.
back in the early days. And we literally helped introduce most of the tech that you have that we're using today,
Okay.
including voicemail and email and browsers. I mean, just about everything that we use, we were somehow involved in helping launch those things.
Nice.
So it was pretty exciting time. But in 91, when the Mac came out, my husband was doing the graphics. He was also a designer, inventor. And I said, you know what? They're all going to go in-house. I mean, they're going to take that bread and butter work, data sheets and things like that, and they're all going to go in-house.
Sure.
So I just said, why don't you retire? Which he did. And was busy ever since after that. And I'll just see what I can do to help them with their marketing in-house.
Okay.
And as I started doing that, this was a big reinvention thing. I mean, for 3 years, I barely knew what I was supposed to be doing every day.
Okay. Sure.
But I decided that CEOs didn't care about sales or marketing. They cared about revenue.
Gotcha.
So I called myself a revenue coach, and it was a great elevator pitch. You could stand in an elevator with a CEO and he'd say, what do you do? And you say, I'm a revenue coach. And he'd say, oh, that's interesting. And I'd say, I help CEOs and entrepreneurs make more money by understanding what their customers want to buy from them and how they want to buy it. So I'm basically an expert on the customer's buying process.
Wow, that's excellent. And I think that is a overlooked component today of the sales process. It's an overlooked viewpoint. So thank you for jumping on today and sharing that with us. So what inspired you to become a revenue coach? How did that kind of work out in your life? Because we love to talk about the intersection of personal growth and business growth. So kind of walk us through, what happened to get you to that spot.
Well, I actually started out selling machine shop tools when I was 17, and Pratt & Whitney gave me a catalog, and I was wearing a mini skirt. So it was easy to get in and get attention. But I didn't know what I was doing. Nobody trained me. And I learned really fast that you had to know what you were talking about. So
Sure.
I remember standing out in the parking lot and thinking to myself on the way back to my car after a sales call, and thinking, I'm going to learn everything I can about tech and selling. And I've been doing that ever since. So that really started me off on that whole tangent. But the other thing that was a big aha in my life was when I was working in the ad agency business, I would sit down with the client when I first started working with them, and I'd ask them what's important to their customers. And they would have a list of 5 or 10 things that they thought were important to their customers. And their whole sales and marketing pitch was based on that. And then I would interview their customers and I would discover the list was completely different.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was true over and over and over and over again. So I thought, wait a minute,
Sure.
we've got a real problem here with people who are not paying any attention to the people with the money, the people that are actually going to buy from you.
Right.
And there's a lot of venture funded businesses in Silicon Valley. And so they were sort of sheltered from needing to give the customer what they wanted for a long time because they had venture money. And that was a mistake too.
So, I mean, most people, if you ask them, how well do you know your customer? I think it's a pretty big blind spot for people. They're going to say, they might say, I know the demographics, I know where they live, I know kind of the ancillary items on that, Kristen, but are you talking about something deeper than just knowing, the avatar is kind of the new word now for it, of, what they eat or what they drink, that type of stuff? Is this a deeper knowledge?
I sort of nodded off during the whole persona avatar thing, because I know that a lot of those personas and avatars are built in windowless rooms by people who've never talked to a customer or haven't talked to a customer very often.
Sure.
And the other big problem is that a CEO would say to me, well, we don't need to interview our customers. Our salespeople talk to customers all the time, and I get feedback from them. And so I would just say one thing. I'd say to the CEO, okay, when was the last time you told a salesperson what you were really thinking while they were selling to you? And he'd look at me and go, oh.
Whoops, light one on there, huh?
Yeah, because when you're buying something, you're playing poker, you're negotiating.
Yeah.
So they don't tell salespeople what they're really thinking. They politely show them out, say, yeah, sure, fine, call me back. And then they go back to their computer and keep looking because something the salesperson said turned them off and they decided they'd never buy from them or whatever. And they don't tell the salesperson.
Yeah.
I'm probably the only person in the world, because I feel sorry for salespeople. I'll say, you just blew the sale. And I'm not going to buy from you, but let me give you a little advice.
Yeah. And here's a copy of my book. And exactly, right?
Yeah, you really should try this other thing. So what I did is I perfected the method of interviewing customers, your current customers, who are actually happy to tell you what they were thinking.
Sure.
And they have a vested interest in your success. And in my book on chapter 3, I just absolutely spell out all the things I've learned and the questions to ask and how to set up the interviews and everything. And the wonderful thing about it is you only need to talk to 5 to 7 people of a given type before you have bankable information. It's absolutely take it to the bank information. It's a big eye opener for everybody in the company.
So are you then creating those questions of what, because again, I'm thinking on behalf of the listener right now, who's thinking, oh, I'd love to have a customer in the room. Now that they're sitting in front of me, I'm going to ask, do you like our product? Do you like our service? How's our, invoice? I mean, are they deeper questions, or are they the same for everybody? How does that work?
They're pretty much the same for everybody, because I worked them out over thousands of interviews and found that this is the best way to get the most conversational answers. The first thing is you do not do this in person. Because it introduces the whole body language stuff and everything. And nobody wants to travel anymore right now anyway.
Sure. Yeah.
So you interview them by phone. You set up a meeting and you set up a half-hour interview and you interview them by phone and you ask these open-ended questions. And they are questions like, what do you think of our product or service? What were you looking? What was the problem you were trying to solve when you went out and looked for this? If you were the CEO of our company tomorrow, what's the first thing you would fix? Wow. Which opens up some wonderful things. I always get good answers to that question. If you were looking for us again, what would you type into Google? So you get a nice, interesting, you still have to do keyword research and all that, but you do get that same phrase, it turns out, that everybody uses. Yeah. What trends do you see in the market right now in your industry? What's your biggest challenge? And then at the very end, I ask, is there anything I should have asked you that I didn't ask you? And that's great, because either they'll tell me something they didn't bring up, or they'll say, no, you got everything. But that one thing that I said earlier, that's the thing that you really need to pay attention to.
Gotcha. That's awesome. And so for those listening, the book is Roadmap to Revenue. And if you think that it was not really valued by people, it was actually named one of the top marketing and sales books by Forbes, one of the top 6, by the way. So, what a cool spot to get a bunch of information about that. So I appreciate you jumping on the show, Kristen. One of the things that we did in one of my previous companies was we actually created a customer advisory council. So we took 10 customers from all walks of life. They weren't necessarily the best or the worst, or we focused more on making sure we had all a good cross section of that. And we then met on a quarterly basis. It was prior to COVID, and we met on a quarterly basis, and we were able to really dig down deep to understand them, what they wanted, what they didn't want. And it was especially interesting because some of the people wanted some things and other people didn't want it, right? I mean, I remember specifically one of the things we were talking about was phone answering, of all things. And one guy's like, I really don't like the fact that you don't have a human being answering your phone. Well, then another guy said, well, I don't want to pay you guys for somebody to answer the phone, so I'm fine without it. I mean, when you start seeing conflicts, I guess is the best word, between what customers say and that, Kristen, how do you work through that piece if you get, conflicting statements from a customer?
Well, on the logistics side, there are differing opinions, but that's more at the bottom of the funnel, so to speak.
Okay.
That's how you treat customers after the sale.
Okay.
What I always focus on is getting leads in for my clients, and then it's up to them to try to close it. And of course, I help them do that. But
Sure.
I think that's like a different side of it. Now, it's true that some companies, I just did this reality check research is what I call it, for one of the largest small sailboat or dinghy companies, manufacturers in the US.
Okay.
And talk to their dealers and distributors and yacht clubs and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And there were definitely some logistical things that they needed to fix. But the basic trends are what you're looking for. And I think I need to say that in addition to this whole idea of the buyer's journey and reverse engineering a successful sale, I also realized that more important than a persona or an avatar is what I call the mindset. It's what they had in their mind, what their mindset was when they set out to buy. And it consists of 3 things: their desires, their concerns, and their questions. So we need to know what they wanted, their desires, what they're looking for. We need to know the concerns they have, because everybody's probably bought something like that before, or they've heard bad things from other people and they're worried about, will this work with my thing, or will it fit here, or whatever.
Sure.
And then questions, specific questions. And shockingly, you don't see those answers. If you go to Amazon and you're looking for something physical, it's sometimes really hard to find the physical measurements of that sucker.
Sure.
It's like the most basic thing. I'm going to put this physical thing in a physical space. I need the measurements.
Sure. Wow. So so desires and concerns and questions, are those things that we really need to get a better handle on from our customers? What are our customers' desires? What are our customers' concerns, and what are our customers' questions?
Yeah, and you'll get that from the kind of interviewing that I recommend, and the open-ended questions. You will find out those 3 things.
Okay. So then let me dig a little deeper here then. If you get that information, because I can see, I'll speak on behalf of the business owner that's listening right now. That's like, yeah, you know what? I could do that. I could poll my customers, whatever that looks like, in person, on the phone, email, whatever. Your suggestion is doing it on the phone. Let's say I do that for 5 or 10 people. Now I have this data in my hand. I think that's where the heavy lifting starts, because I know when we did that for ours, and we had our customer advisory council, we had short-term goals, medium-term goals, and long-term goals. And we had to have the caveat of, hey, I can't guarantee that what you ask for, we're going to be able to deliver.
Yeah, I agree with that. And you have to back up a little bit. When I do this research, I record the conversation. I tell the person up front that I'm recording and that
Okay.
I'm going to anonymize their comments so they don't have to worry about speaking up. But I can't type as fast as they can talk. So
Sure.
that
Yep.
they talk freely then. I have them transcribed. I turn that into a conversation report. So here are all the answers to this question and all the answers to that question. And those things can be 70 to 100 pages. And you
Wow.
would think, oh, wow, people are not going to read that. I got news for you. I have CEOs that will spend all night reading it the day they
Oh,
get the
sure.
report.
Yeah.
Because fascinating. It's like someone telling your life, you know. And
Yep.
then I boil that down to a bulletized version. And then I do recommendations. So that becomes the beginning of this plan that you're talking about, because then you have to prioritize what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, and try to do the easy wins that you can do quickly that'll have the biggest impact.
Well, and I think that, so I wrote down customer focused versus company focused.
Yeah.
I think you hit a really good point here, Kristen, because I look at this and think to myself, if you're listening right now and you said 70 pages, I don't care about my customer 70 pages. I think right there is the spot where you need to work on, because I think, man, if a customer gave me 70 pages, I'm stopping what I'm doing. I'm like that night, like you said, right? I'm reading that.
Well, that means you're going to succeed. And there are plenty of people who just don't care. And to me, I just roll my eyes, because the customers are the ones with the money. Okay.
Right.
That's where revenue comes from. It comes from happy customers and them telling other people what a great time they had with your product or service. That's just the way it is now. So you got to do it.
Well, and I think if you don't do it, that customer is going to go somewhere where there is the attitude of a customer focused.
Yeah.
And I think that's where, I mean, I remember in one of my businesses, you know, it was a situation where the doorbell would ring. You know, you'd walk in the door and it would make a chime noise, and people would be like, there was a little camera and you could see who's coming in. And you could get that sense of people going, customer, right? And I could start to sense that. And so I finally, this was way back in the day where they would hand deliver you remember when Paychex would hand deliver the.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I tell you what, though, Kristen, Wednesday at 10 o'clock, when that guy walked through the door, everybody was like super stoked. I mean, no one's ever mad at the Paychex guy, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Except for the business owner. But it's funny, because in that case, I saw a huge disconnect on my team, because they loved the Paychex guy, but they didn't love the customer. So I had to sit them down and we talked about this and said, you guys have to start understanding the customer walking in equals the Paychex guy that's walking in. Because if they stop walking in,
there's no Paychex guy.
He stops walking in too, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think there's a big disconnect. Even us as consumers, we can tell the companies that are customer focused versus
absolutely
not, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is something you learn when you're an infant and somebody comes to pinch your cheek like she loves you, but it hurts when she pinches your cheek. And you think to yourself, ooh, that person doesn't really like me. You know, she's acting like she does, but she just hurt my cheek. And so it's something you learn at a very young age, is who really cares and who doesn't.
Right.
So companies are not fooling anyone when they say, we care about you. And they have these great, you know, jingles and stuff. And then you go to the website and you're in voicemail hell for 10 minutes and you still can't figure out which button to push. They don't even give you the option you're looking for.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. I'm in the middle of that right now, and it's trying to find, and I won't mention the name because I think I won't give them that plug, but it's a common delivery service, and they deliver to our house consistently the wrong package. I mean, we get the wrong package. And, so I call them. And I say, and I can't find a live person. I mean, it's so hard to find a live person.
Yeah, so I'm sorry about voicemail. That was one of the things we helped introduce.
Oh, thanks a lot, Kristen. So you're the one to blame. Okay, everyone listening, we're going to give Kristen's email out at the end. So send her all the thank yous for
Yeah.
that. Nice
Yeah.
job.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's one of those things where I'm the customer. And so, I finally got a hold of somebody and I said, hey, this is what's been going on. And he said, well, can you read me the whatever tracking, the tracking
Yeah.
number?
Yeah.
So I start reading it. And then I said, well, I don't know what to tell you because the last 6 digits, it printed funny and I can't read them. And now
Oh.
the guy's getting mad at me. Like
Oh,
I did
goodness.
something wrong, right?
Oh,
So finally
geez.
he says, fine, give me your address. I give him my address and he says, I'll send somebody to pick it up. Well, in Milwaukee here, it's been snowing like crazy. So here's a 4-foot by 4-foot box on my driveway that I don't know who it is. It's not for me. It's getting
Oh,
snowed on, iced on, rained on,
oh,
everything. And they're not coming to pick it up. And I
that's
can
sad.
see it on the box. It says something about a chair. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what this is. And then the FedEx guy comes and I ask him and he's like, I don't know what to tell you. And
Yeah.
it's just a mess. And and I start to feel bad as a customer, like I'm doing something wrong,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's what I really appreciate about you guys is that you're looking at this and preaching to look at this from the customer's perspective, not a task to check off, not a piece of paper to get off my desk. I mean,
Well, and I have to say one other thing too.
yeah,
This works. Okay. The reason I do it
absolutely.
and keep talking about it and trying to get people to do it. I mean, I don't care if nobody ever hired me again for this research and people all did it themselves. That'd be fine with me. The world needs it. It's the truth is once you figure out their mindset and once you give them what they want,
Right.
they buy more from you. They refer people to you. Your website traffic goes up. Your conversions go up. Everything goes up.
Right.
We live for the hockey stick. We live for that zooming up revenue thing.
Yep.
It's what I've devoted my career to is that swoop up.
Yep.
This works. It actually works. It almost can't not work because
Right.
as long as you hear them and you do it, then you're just giving them what they want. How can they say no?
Right. Well, and I think the listeners right now, there's 2 pieces that are kind of making them hesitate. Number one, there's probably a misnomer that there's a ton of time investment here. And
No,
most
it's a couple of
entrepreneurs,
weeks.
business
Yeah.
owners are just so darn busy, right?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
they don't have the time. And quite frankly, they don't have the knowledge. They understand their customer list. They know
Yeah.
them. They would
Yeah.
be able to pick them out in a lineup, but yet
Yeah.
that's probably as deep as they go.
Yeah.
So I think it's probably very intimidating to think it was. Trust me, Kristen, when we put ourselves out there and said we want 10 customers to come and rip apart our business, we put ourselves out on the line. I mean,
Yeah, it's scary. Yeah.
it is. But I
Yeah.
tell you what, from 2008 to 2012, when there was a mass, exodus in our industry, I mean, our industry dropped significantly. We grew by 47%.
Yeah. See,
Because
this is
we looked
exactly
at the
right.
customer and said,
That's
you know
right.
what? Customer is it, bar none. There is no asterisk after that.
Yeah.
Can't say if
Yeah.
it's convenient for me. You
Yeah.
can't say if I feel like it, right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that's what I think is so
Well,
bad.
I think people get, even in small companies, I have this analogy where everyone in the company is used to working with everyone else and they become your friends and everything. And you end up in this little club.
Right.
And so you're in this house and at some point a customer knocks on the door and you're like, just like you were saying earlier, like, oh God, not another customer. We're busy in here. Can't you tell we're busy in here?
Yep.
And it's just the whole thing is nonsensical. It doesn't make any sense. And it's because people are afraid to hear the truth.
Right. But I think I have to say, and I try and say this as often as possible, because I'm a leader. I also think that this starts at the leadership level.
Oh, absolutely.
The leader has to have that buy-in of,
Yep.
you know what, the customer is the best. The customer's number one, bar none.
Yep.
If that's not, permeating the company, it's pretty hard to have that.
Oh, no, you can't. You can't. The
trusted
leader
group.
has to be the one. And what's interesting is when the leader really is that way, everyone at the company, actually, the nice people, the people that really want to help people, they actually enjoy it.
Yeah.
They feel like they're, the old thing, everybody says, I want to make a difference. That's what people say about their working life. They all say, I want to make a difference.
Sure.
And when you know that you're helping people, I mean, we get so excited in our team when the sales start to take off. It's a wonderful day,
Sure.
for everybody.
Yep.
So it's really what you end up living for. And that's the thing that when you're all moving in that direction and helping the customer, and the customer's happy, there's nothing better, frankly. It's really, it's a heavenly kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, that is, you think about yourself again as a consumer. How often do you shop in places or frequent places that don't treat you the right way?
You don't.
I mean, that's it. Just
you don't go back. Yeah.
You come to a point where, and that's the sad part, like you alluded to prior, is that if I have a bad experience, I'm going to go tell a bunch of people.
Oh, absolutely.
And I tell way more people I had a bad experience than I had a good experience from.
Yeah, that's been proven for sure. Yeah.
So,
and these days, maybe 50 years ago, you could get away with it.
Yeah.
But now it's so easy. All you have to do is type in the name of the company and the word problem, and suddenly you get all the bad stuff that they did to customers. You can't hide your discourteous behavior. You're outed.
Yep. And I'd rather that people be oversensitive about the customer rating, so to speak. I mean, I know for myself, like, on my book and on my podcast, when I get a 4 instead of a 5,
yeah, it's a hard day, isn't it?
I'm like, what the heck did I do?
Yeah,
I'm
really.
like, man, and then I want to find out who it is, and I want to call them, and but there's the other side of it that people, they could care less. They have a 3 or a 2 rating or 1.5 or whatever, the number is, and they're just like, they tend to blame. I don't want to work with that customer anyway. I mean, I get that a lot.
Oh yeah, there's that.
Start to justify that I'm glad they're not here. And I've yet to hear very many people say, oh my gosh, we lost this customer, and they were a great customer. They were great payers. We're going to miss them. It's going to be hard for us. Most of the time, whether it's a blind spot for people or they just are that callous, they're happy and they're outward that people leave. So but that's really awesome that there's this process. So how do you, once we have this information, what do we do with it? What do I do if I invest that time?
Well, this is the best part about it. It's so clear. It's so obvious. I mean, we just did this for ourselves. I have never actually asked someone to do a reality check research thing for our own company, because I talk to my own clients every day, and I kind of know where they're at. But I wanted to, and there's one of the people on my staff who I trusted enough to do these interviews, and he did a great job. And we got that 70-page report. We went through it, and we were immediately able to fix a couple of things that people said, well, we really need to know more about some of the team members when we're onboarded. We're absolutely, fixing that right off the bat. Sure. So they will say specific things. It's like a recipe.
Okay.
And you just follow the recipe. It's not, and that's one of the beauties of this. One of the hardest things about marketing and selling is that you're guessing and assuming, and you're experimenting all the time.
Sure.
When you have someone that's why I call my book Roadmap to Revenue, because these customers will tell you specifically what you need to do to improve.
Yep.
It just spells it out for you. Sure. And so all you have to do then is say, okay, how do we do this, team? How do we make this work? And as the leader, you know how to do that. You know how to say, okay, kids, we're going to do this and this and this,
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I can see, I'm just thinking about it for myself. So, if I got this 70-page report back from you,
you're horrified by this.
I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I'm not that bad. I mean, I wrote a book on customer experience. It was Amazon #1 bestseller.
Oh, no, but it isn't all negative either. I mean, honestly, I was so thrilled, because the biggest message that I got from those 70 pages was that we really care about our customers. That was the thing they loved about what we do. Sure. And that was the best gift I could have gotten. So there's a lot of good that comes out of this. And by the way, that's the whole point. This
Yeah.
is the thing that you then promote,
Sure.
what they love you for. And then
Sure.
the stuff that you need to fix, well, it's like the duck with the feet paddling underwater. You just get that stuff, to the point where it's good. And then you can promote that.
Well, isn't it seem like it's human nature? And I just did it and I didn't even realize until you said that. I wasn't focusing on like for every 10 reviews that I get, I wasn't focusing on the 9 people that gave me a 5.
Oh, I
I
know.
was like,
Yeah,
yes,
it's
right?
human nature.
I was
Yeah.
focused on, excuse me, the one guy or girl
Yeah.
that gave me 4. So I think it's
know.
kind of some human nature there, correct?
I had one person give me a 4 on the book review, and I was so disappointed because she said, "This is a 5-star book." And she gave it 4 stars. And I was like, "Oh, great. Thanks a lot."
Wow, there you go.
Yeah.
Yep. There's
So
always
yeah,
one out.
it does matter. We tend to obsess, but that's one of the beauties of talking to 5 to 7 people of a given
Yeah.
type is you see the overall trend.
Sure. Wow.
This is not a nitpicky thing. This is a
Sure.
strategy thing.
So does this report then, so if I understand the process, I mean, I'm trying to understand where you fit into this process. So I come to you and say, hey, I want you to help me. Do I conduct the interviews? Do you conduct the kind of walk
Yeah,
me through
I'm
what that
still
looks like?
doing all these interviews myself.
Okay.
And I always have time to do these. I have an assistant that helps me make the appointments and all that stuff. Because making appointments by email is like watching grass grow. It's very boring. And so that's all done. And then I just go in and I do the interviews, and then she takes care of having all the transcriptions done and everything. And then I have another person who puts all that into a report. So there's a lot of the bookwork, paperwork part of it that I don't have to work with.
Okay.
But I do the interviews myself, and then I come back and I make recommendations. Now, sometimes this is people, well, most of the time it's people who want to hire the agency, but we want to start right. And they want me to do this research. This is why they're coming to me.
Sure.
And then other times, I just did one for a client, and they kind of come and go because he likes doing a lot of stuff in-house, which is fine. And I just did the research for them. So either way, I love doing this research because it really keeps me with my finger on the pulse of all and I noticed this week when I was in Silicon Valley and people were talking about trends in tech and all that. And I was 6 months ahead of them because the customers were thinking and behaving. And the press didn't get wind of it until 6 months later when they acted on those beliefs.
Okay.
So you can actually get ahead of the marketplace with this stuff.
Gotcha. Wow. So if I am interested and I'm listening, I mean, I'm trying to understand, where do I start by just reaching out to you then? And then
Yeah. I would just talk to you and
dialogue?
find out what your goals are, and we'd have a good, meaningful conversation because I can also give you a lot of advice on the phone.
Okay.
I'd probably go to your website and say, okay, this is good, but this is missing and whatever. We are a digital marketing company.
Okay.
So we do all of the digital marketing. We can do the other stuff too, the analog print stuff if we need to.
Sure.
But basically we are SEO, content, email marketing, search engine, the social marketing and online advertising, all that stuff we do. We have specialists that do all of that. And it's after you do this research and you figure out what they
Gotcha.
want to buy from you, what their concerns and questions, and how they want to buy it.
Gotcha. Okay. I gotta believe that there's a lot of people that have the 70 pages and they're just like, oh my gosh, I don't want to look.
No,
Can you read it for me, Kristen?
No, they actually, it's just the opposite. I have people say,
Okay.
"Come on, give me the report, give me the report."
Yeah.
And honestly though, too, don't forget, these are people that have heard me speak or something, and they've bought into the whole idea and they love the idea. So when I give them that 70-page thing, it's like a big meal, big, greasy, wonderful, satisfying comfort food. Yeah.
Well, I loved what you said. It said, we help you sell the way your customers want to buy.
Yeah.
And I do a lot of sales training, and I know that in those sales training and the sales coaching and that whole sales world, we tend to have a way that we sell. and we tend to not deviate, especially back in the day where you used to have some kind of pitch kit of some kind.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you'd
Those
go
days
from,
are done. Those
yeah,
days are completely finished.
yep. Well, and
Yep.
there's still people that want to start. I mean, I'll never forget when I bought a car, the second to last car we bought,
Yeah.
we do a lot of work with disc. I'm a high D. So I want this. I walked in, I said, I know the car I want. I know how to do this. Let's just get this done. I got stuff I got to do. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Guy didn't hear me. And he's like, he said, okay. He said he heard me, but he really didn't. So
Yeah.
he said, let me tell you. And I was a Toyota because I'm a Toyota fan. He says, let me tell you about the history of Toyota.
Oh,
Okay,
geez.
so now he goes through the history of Toyota, never thinking that, wow, this guy is on his 6th or 7th, whatever it is, Toyota. So I think I could probably skip that, but he didn't do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
From there, then his next thing was, well, let me tell you about the history of our dealership.
Oh,
I
geez.
don't care. I'm sitting in front of you.
Yeah.
And then after I painfully sat through that, then the third one was, let me tell you about the history of me in this dealership. And I'm just like, oh my gosh.
He has lost you. He has unsold the car.
Exactly. I mean, unfortunately, I bought it because it was a friend somewhere. There was a
In
relation
spite of him,
somewhere.
though.
And I'm
Yeah,
just
in
like,
spite
whatever.
of him. Yeah.
But it's like, why in the world do we not sell the way the customer wants to buy? Where in sales did we ever learn that it's about us, the salesperson, not the customer? Where do you know where that's?
I know what that is, actually. I call myself a recovering salesperson because I'm sort of a natural at it, but I also know that salespeople have some bad habits, and one of them is not being process oriented enough. So when my husband and I went into business together, he turned me into a process convert.
Okay.
And the other is that we like knowing things. And this is going to be really insulting to all the salespeople out there, but I say this with tough love, which is, we get into sales because we want to be the expert in the room about that particular thing. Yep. So we learn about the history of the company. We may even learn about the customer. So we might say in a marketing piece, marketing people might say, I know what your problem is. You're this and you're that. And, right. And I use this analogy. It's like a guy who's sitting on top of his roof in a big flood and he thinks he's going to die. And, he needs to be rescued. Somebody comes up with a small boat with a little outboard and he stops about 20 feet away and he says, you look really miserable up there. I can really empathize with how miserable you look. And the guy's like, just come and rescue me. So that's what we're doing. You just wanted to buy a car. Okay. You went there to buy a car. And if the guy asked you what you wanted, he would say, okay, well, there's 3 options for you. Let's go look at them. And that would have been the continuance of your process. Okay. So it's a customer-centric buying process, but no, we have to tell them everything we know. We have to be the smart one. And that's a big mistake now because the customer is pretty darn smart. Yeah. They've talked to other customers. They've read the websites. They're fanatical about digging deep and finding out stuff. And a lot of times they know more than the sales guy. So it's a big mistake, big mistake.
Well, I know from my years of Sandler training that David Sandler said people love to buy, but they hate to be sold.
That is exactly right. David was correct.
I love the fact that they love to buy stuff, but boy, I tell you what, as soon as I feel any I mean, maybe it's pressure. A little different because I know what's going on, but the average person that's not involved in sales on a day-to-day basis,
no, they don't want to be pushed.
Yeah, they feel you reaching for their wallet.
It's an uncomfortable thing. It's a threatening thing. You're getting into my space. Yeah.
Wow. Well, there's so much here. Again, I appreciate what you're sharing here. I gotta say, I can't wait to read the roadmap to revenue because that's going to be a really cool thing. And I appreciate you sharing this. I got a couple questions and then I'm going to let you go. What would Kristin Zhivago's tip of the week be for people listening?
I have to go back to something I say a lot these days, which is that real business, real successful business is all about love. It's about taking care of your customers and your employees and your systems, your business, your infrastructure. Just taking care, being concerned, solving problems, find it, face it, fix it. My husband always used to say.
Wow.
It really is about taking care of people. And when
Sure.
you do that, everybody knows it and they respond positively to it. And that's
Wow.
how you make more money. That's it, boiled down.
Yeah. Awesome. So yeah, if you don't love your customer, if you don't love your business, if you don't love your team,
Yeah.
I think it's really hard to have success. I totally agree. It doesn't, and it's just for the people that may not know, it's pretty visible from the outside if
Oh,
you
yeah.
enjoy what
Yeah.
you're doing or you don't.
Yeah.
There's plenty of drive-throughs that I've been through in my life that I can tell they do not want to be there. And then
Yeah.
there's plenty of drive-throughs where, man, they're making the best of whatever it is they're going
Yeah.
through right in that moment.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's pretty visible from
Yeah.
the consumer's perspective. So that's a great tip. Thanks. So one more question, and this is always a fun one. So what is one thing that most people don't know about you that you feel comfortable sharing?
Well, there's two things actually. One is that my husband and I are ocean sailors. And we sailed together for 45 years, first windsurfing in San Francisco Bay, and then a 37-foot boat in San Francisco and Narragansett Bays. And then we had a 48-foot catamaran built in South Africa, and we sailed it home.
Wow.
So I'm an ocean sailor. My husband was an adventurous guy. Unfortunately, got cancer 4 times.
Oh gosh.
Each time fatal cancer. And finally, the last one got him so sick that he finally decided to end it all on August 16th of last year.
I'm
And
sorry.
I'm getting good enough where I can say that without crying. I
I'm
love
so
that
sorry.
guy. I was in love
Man.
with that guy. We were in love with each other and up
Yeah.
until the last day, but he just couldn't go through it anymore.
Wow.
So yeah, those are things that, I don't mind sharing.
Wow.
If
Sailing,
it helps somebody.
that's fantastic. I mean, I would never even have made that correlation. So so it was pretty cool from where you said South Africa?
South Africa
the
to New
US?
England. Yeah, it took 8 weeks, 8,000 miles. Yeah, it was.
Just the
And
two
I
of you, or
did.
were there more people on
No,
board?
no, it's just the two of us. It was my first ocean sailing. I had been sailing in bays all my life, and then, or as long as I was with him. But he had done a lot of deliveries and kind of got himself ready for that prior to doing it. So he was pretty cool about it. But it was quite an adventure. There were people ask me, were there any storms? And I'm like, are you kidding? I was 2 months out in the
Kidding.
South and North Atlantic. Yes, there were storms. It was
Gosh.
scary sometimes. It was an amazing adventure to be out there all by yourself and just be totally dependent in that little
Sure.
tiny 48 by 26 foot thing in the middle of these waves and stuff. It was awesome.
Wow. Well, I have to say again, high D on disc. I get bored easy. When you say 8 weeks at sea, I'm like, oh my gosh, I think I could last like 8 minutes. And then I'd be like,
No,
all right.
you're very busy. You are
Okay.
very busy. There's something going on at every moment.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
You're in the
awesome.
middle of this big body of water that's shifting and changing and blowing
Sure.
and, waves that look like they're going to come over your head any second.
Wow.
It's awesome.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, so for the listener, again, as we do this every week, our goal here is to challenge you, to look at your business from a different perspective. And today is a fantastic, probably the best perspective to look at, and that's your customers.
Yeah.
And if that makes you nervous, welcome to the team. Welcome to the club. Welcome to,
It's okay.
we'll see you at the meetings. It's totally okay.
Yeah.
If that did spark something in you, then that's where, again, rather than jump on to the next podcast, rather than jump back into your day, I want to encourage you to really take the next step. And where, Kristen, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you to help them understand that next step, where would they go?
Well, first thing is you can always buy the book. It's Audible. I don't like the Audible version as much just because in a large part of the book, I break out the buying process for different types of products and services. And that's kind of a column by column thing that works better in print. And the book is pretty easy to read. It's all conversational and, it's just person to person. So that's the
Excellent.
first place. And that's Amazon is where I sell it. It's roadmap to revenue, how to sell the way your customers want to buy. And then
Okay.
if you just Google Kristin Zhivago, you'll find everything about me. And we also have a website, of course, which is zhivagopartners.com.
Awesome. So cool. I so appreciate you sharing this information with us. I'm sitting here trying to think of how in the world I could, ask a customer, have you say talk on my behalf. So it's like, that's really intimidating. So I totally get
Yeah.
the people that
And
are
I would
listening.
say this, and you don't have to hire me, but you really should hire somebody else, because the customers actually are pretty polite when they get on the phone.
Yeah,
And so they won't tell you everything. They'll water it down. And you
sure.
really need a third party to say, I've been hired by the CEO or the entrepreneur to do this.
Yeah.
So it helps. But again, I give you everything you need to know is in the book, all the instructions on how to do it.
Excellent. Well, I have to say that's going to be on my list. So thank you so much for sharing that. And again, for
Thank you.
people listening, like I said, I can only give you the information. What you do with it is completely up to you. And if you don't do anything with it, I totally get it. I'm not mad about it. You just can't get mad at me or Kristen, because we've given you the opportunity to do something with it, and really maybe a super easy interim step would be for somebody to just ask their customer off the cuff, would you ever consider talking to a third party about our, relationship?
Yeah, you can do that. I'm even having clients now. I used to just send out emails just introducing myself, but I actually have the client introduce me now and say, we've hired this person and would you be open to it? And then they say yes. And it's quite easy. People think this is going to be hard, but I've never had someone refuse. Okay. I've had people not respond to an email or something, but I've never had anybody say, I'm not interested in doing this. They all want to help. It's surprising. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you again for sharing this. Please
You're
take
welcome.
advantage of this. Reach out to Kristen and, let her know how she can help you. So thanks again, and look forward to learning more from you.
Yeah. Same here. Bye.